Hello, this is candidate Master Viktor Neustroev, and today we analyze our next study-like combination, chess Etude number 8, and in this position it's white to move. Your task is to find the victory. This chess Etude was created by Russian chess composer Alexander Zhukov, and in this position you may notice such a strange thing: the pawn on b6, which is covered by the b5 pawn, which is black. So it's not common to happen in the games, but sometimes it happens. That's why in this position the rook can't cover the b6 pawn from behind. By the way, what do you think about such material balance when the rook is against two minor pieces? Usually two minor pieces are much better, but in some positions, especially when the side with the rook has passed pawns and this side can protect these passed pawns from behind, the rook can be better. As for this position, the most important and the most dangerous thing for black in this position is the b6 pawn, because it has to move only 2 squares to become a queen. So it's white to move. How would you play? You may pause this video, think a little bit, and then try to come up with the solution. Okay, let's continue. What do you think about b7? Because he can't play rook e8, so how can he stop the pawn? He can play rook a6 check, king g5 and rook b6. After that, he takes the pawn on b7. We definitely can't win after that, after we lose this pawn. For that pawn, at least we should get a rook. What about bishop c5? Still rook a6 to pin the pawn. Knight f6, or just any move. Then a rook takes on b6, so he sacrifices the rook for the pawn, but then he has two pawns. And after b4, he plans to play king c2, b3, b2, b1, and for that pawn we should sacrifice one of our pieces, for example the bishop. That's why it will be draw. What if king g5 here? If so, then rook a8 can be played, and then he captures one of our minor pieces. Bishop d6, but rook g8. King takes on f5, but it's still a draw because of the bishop against the rook and this strong b7 pawn. The best move in this position is knight f6. How to play for black? Let's try rook a8, bishop d6, with the idea to play b7 and promote the pawn. So we want to play b7 because then the rook has no squares on the back rank. For example, the b8 square is attacked by the bishop. The d8 square can be also attacked by the bishop after bishop c7. The e8 is covered by the knight, g8 is also covered by the knight, and after king g7 the king takes control over these two squares, while the pawn on b7 controls these two. So we want to take the rook and then promote the pawn for a queen. That's why in this position the best thing he can do is to play rook a6. But then knight d7, with the idea to play knight c5 and win the rook. How to play? For example, king d4, king g5. So now the king stops the f pawn. King d5, but b7. Rook takes on d6, knight f6 check. We don't want to lose the knight. If he takes, it's fine. We promote first on b8, and then our queen takes these two pawns. If king moves, then b8 equals queen. We have the knight and the queen, and we win here. If here he plays rook b6, as we previously analyzed, a very similar position to this, then we take with the knight, and as for this position, we win it because the bishop is able to cover these two squares. Then the knight goes to d5, b4, while the king controls this f4 square. He can't promote the pawns. We shouldn't sacrifice anything. For example, king d4, king g5. b4 doesn't work. However, black has to checkmate with the knight and the bishop. Sometimes it's really difficult, and it depends on the knowledge. If, for example, you know how to checkmate, then you will do it in the game. But if not, to find the solution yourself will be a really difficult thing. If you spend 50 moves without any trades, your opponent can't claim a draw. Okay, so rook e8 doesn't work in this position. Rook a6, that's the best thing he can do. How to play then? Bishop c5 doesn't work again because he takes and play b4. Then we have to sacrifice one of our minor pieces for the pawn, for the b pawn. If, for example, king g5 here, then rook b6 doesn't work because then we play knight d7, and here you may find that the king covers the f4 square, and there are no more squares for the rook here because rook a6, knight c5, rook e6, knight c5 again, rook c6, knight e5, rook b7, knight c5, so the rook is trapped. But in this position, instead of taking this pawn, he can play b4. And then he is threatening to capture, because then he gets the b5 square for the rook. That's a drawish position. For example, knight d5, rook a8, attacking the bishop. Knight takes on b4 check. King e4. Bishop d6. The bishop was hanging. f4. If bishop takes, then rook g8, and black takes the bishop for free. That's a draw again. If, for example, instead of playing knight d5, we can try knight d7 here, then rook a5. The rook goes to b5 to cover the pawn. b7, rook b5, b8 equals queen. The knight is so far, and after b3, white has to play something like this, or bishop a3, but then king c2, and the knight is so far to help the bishop to stop the pawn. That's why after b2, king c2 and b2, white has to sacrifice the bishop. Let's go back. So king g5 and bishop c5 don't work both. Knight d7, that's the best move. How to play? Rook b6, but in this position the knight is already on b6, while the bishop covers the b4 square. However, that's not enough for white to win because of f4, and the king is so far, knight d5, f3. This position we have to sacrifice the bishop for the f pawn, and then the knight catches the b pawn. That's a draw. That's why after rook b6, which is a check, First, we should play king g5 to stop the f-pawn, and again you may see that the rook here is trapped. It has no squares. If he goes to b7, a6 or e6, then knight c5. And if he goes to c6, then knight e5. What if f4? If so, then just simply king takes on f4. And again, the rook can't go to g6 because of knight e5, knight g6. That's why here the best move by black is rook g6. King takes on g6, f4, knight c5 check, where the king goes. If king e3, then just bishop h6 and king f5, so we win the f-pawn while the knight controls the b-pawn. For example, king d4, knight e6, king e5, knight takes on f4. b4 cannot be played immediately because of knight d3 check. That's why king d4 first. But then bishop goes here. King c4, king f5, b4. Bishop g7. And on the next move, doesn't matter what is he, actually, if he goes here, then just knight d3, so we stop the b2 square. If he plays b3 with the pawn, then we just play bishop b2. And after king b4, knight d3 check, king e4. This is how we stop the b pawn. And the king can't reach our bishop. So king e3 doesn't work in this position. What if king e2? If so, what do you think we should do? Knight e4. Here we are threatening knight c3. At the same time, we want to cover the f2 square. f3, bishop c5. If, for example, instead of this move, we play knight g3, then king f2, and that's a draw. It just will be a repetition of the position. Because we can't play bishop d6 here, he just pushes the pawn forward. And to stop the pawn, we should use our bishop. So f3, bishop c5. Then he plays b4. But in this position, of course, we don't play knight f2 because then we should use the bishop to stop the b pawn. But we can play knight g3 check. And here you may notice that there are not so many squares for the king. If king goes to d3, we take this pawn. f2 and bishop c5. The king can't get closer to the f2 pawn to save it. That's why let's play king e1, but then bishop b4 is a move with a check. King f2, attacking the knight, knight e4. King e3, attacking the knight again, but now we play king f5. And f2 no longer works because of bishop c5, which is a check. After that, we just capture the pawn and then try to checkmate him with a pair of minor pieces. Okay, let's go back. Here, the b6 pawn is the most important thing, and our task was to force him to sacrifice the rook for the b6 pawn, and at the same time try to control these two passed pawns with our bishop and the knight. Okay, that's all. I hope you like this study-like combination. Please subscribe to my channel and add a comment if you think that I should cover some different lines and variations. Thank you for your attention.